Hello, it's Blue Orange 22. You can see from the background, I am back in Florida. I had a great time in Europe and had a great time at the Speaker's Corner. Now, I'm still getting emails about that, and I'm still getting questions about that. So there will be videos in the future where I address some questions people have about some of the things that I say and break some things down and explain further. So those videos are coming. But I want to say that I think right now, the men's rights movement and men's rights in general as a topic has never been more mainstream and more acceptable. As we speak, the present day, this is the most mainstream the MRM has ever been. I am seeing more and more positive coverage of men's rights. And on social media, I'm seeing it more and more common for pro-MRA or pro-men's rights posts or comments to be upvoted and supported than ever before. And at the Speaker's Corner, what you didn't see is the half an hour after the footage stopped, as I was talking to people, the vast majority of people agreed with me. Even though some of them said that they weren't MRAs, some of them said they were quite surprised by the things I was saying. And when I actually broke my arguments down further, they said, well, we didn't think the men's rights movement was like what you are. We didn't think that MRAs thought this way. Some people were taken aback when I said the comment about how Emmeline Pankhurst, who was a suffragette, was a terrorist. They thought that was a little strong. Until I told them to take their phone out and Google her and look at some of the things they did. They planted bombs. So that's not something I made about of nothing. And that will be the suffragettes and the White Feather campaign, a video I do in the next couple days. I'm pretty sure I have one already. I'll try and dig it up, put it in the description below. But I'll cover it again anyway. But now is the time more than ever where people are beginning to understand what MRAs are talking about, and it's finally starting to sink in that we're not a bunch of crazy misogynists, we're not some crazy right-wing movements, we're not some crazy white supremacist movements. We literally just want to talk about equality, and the issues that affect men and boys are more prevalent and more serious than the media would have most people believe. And so when people start to discover this, they're very surprised, and then they get very angry because they realize that they've been lied to for a long time. One of the emails I got today, actually, was from a woman who used to be a feminist, and it was because she joined a feminist group that she now became an anti-feminist and is now a men's rights activist. And that's actually very common. You see a lot of MRAs who are former feminists, but you see very, very few feminists who are former MRAs, and that's something to think about. So I do think that we're winning, and I do think it's interesting to imagine what the future of the men's rights movement is going to look like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. But it's been a grind, and it's been many, many years to get to this point. Because I remember back in 2016, 2017, 7 or 8 years ago, it was much worse than it is now. You think it's bad now. Back then, if you said you were an MRA, you were an absolute pariah. I mean, people would look at you like you're the worst person in the world. And maybe that's because I was living in LA and in the film industry, but it was so much worse then than it is now. It is so much more acceptable now because people are finally beginning to realize that, hey, these MRA guys and girls actually know what they're talking about. And when people look at the stats and look at the data, they realize that we're telling the truth. But one of the big things that's happening is that now more and more men and boys are actually being affected by things, and their relatives and friends are seeing it happen in real time. So they kind of discover it the hard way because it actually happens to them, which is something that I've been predicting and MRAs have been predicting for a very, very long time. We're not making this stuff up, and eventually the truth will always catch up to you. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on that this evening. It's good to be back, although I do miss Europe. I always have a very good time when I go, and I do have to say one thing that is unquestionably true. Say what you want, but the French, they know how to do food. My God, they know how to do food.